Does a nightmare imply the existence of a daymare? Why are the McDonald's Happy Meals only meant for children? Is it because every meal as an adult is sad? All of these questions you can find the answer to on This Paranormal Life! Hello everyone and welcome back to This Paranormal Life, the comedy paranormal podcast where every week we investigate a brand new paranormal tale and come to the conclusion at the end as to whether or not that thing is paranormal. My name is Roy Powers. This guy across from me is Kit Greer-Mulvena, and today we are bringing you a brand new paranormal story to shiver your timbers. Kit, are you excited to be back in the studio?
Hell yes, brother. Let me just say as a quick PSA, there's nothing stopping you from ordering that Happy Meal as an adult.
Yes, because recently a lot of McDonald's now have touchscreens.
You've been using the touchscreen so much, you forgot how to speak. Touchscreens.
It's a game changer.
You don't have to talk like a toddler to get the Happy Meal. We scooch up on our knees with our shoes on our knees. Hello, mister. I just ordered the Happy Meal. Yeah, you're the one who ordered the Happy Meal and asked for, and then tapped into the extras and basically added a full Big Mac on the side.
Wait.
Oh yeah, because that was me.
You guys have Happy Meals? I think I'm Willie's turning to like McDonald's. They're like, we know you're a grown man. You can just order a meal for a child.
You know, you can just order the Pokemon cards as an add-on to your adult meal.
Yeah, you don't need to buy the whole thing.
Sorry, oh really?
Will we? I mean, sorry, really? That'd be great. Sorry, I think I'm having a stroke. The touchscreens are a game changer because they are a shame changer, aka there is no shame anymore. I can order whatever I want with no one having to receive my order. When I go to do my regular order at McDonald's, the people in the kitchen don't know what I'm doing, so they assume a busload of school children have entered the McDonald's and have placed one large order by the headmaster.
They assume it's a Make-A-Wish for some reason.
So they're like, we have an order here for 120 chicken nuggets, 19 Happy Meals, and 1 fish fillet. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually me. I'll pick that up. I got loads of people. I'm actually doing an order for like a bunch of my friends who are at like a house nearby. So I'm going to pick them up here and I'm going to go back to their house and probably like, I'm not even that hungry.
They're like, sir, your eyes are so red. Do you need to go to hospital? You've got the munchies.
I forget the point that I was making. Oh yes, every meal as an adult is sad. Not because the food is bad, but because of the general weight of existing in this world.
Okay, right.
Just if I wasn't clear.
Not to be too heavy at the top of an episode.
Hey, but
because the toy takes away the pain.
Yeah, it kind of
for a little second
reminds you of a simpler time when you could find joy in even eating food.
I actually
rather than just having it as fuel to keep you working for another day.
Right.
You know?
Because we kind of just like live to work at this point rather than work to live.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
It's kind of crazy.
One of ours on holiday recently, in a pinch, got my daughter, my 3-year-old, a Happy Meal. And she got the Pokemon cards toy, which of course I was pretty jazzed about. Because
you're like, ooh, actually, maybe Daddy will hold on to those. I mean, she's like opening them up with her ketchup-y fingers. You're like, ooh, that was a Charizard. No, maybe Daddy will. Oh, because we can still wipe it down. Hey, maybe... Well, how about Daddy holds on to the Charizard? You brought like little lamination packs.
My wife is mad at me and I'm like, sweetie, we've gone from a mint down to a A-, okay? And
this is at most going to be a PSA grade 6, all right? And if I can get the ketchup off now.
And the PSA, they are jammed up. They are jammed up for the next 6 to 9 months. So the condition we keep it in right now is absolutely crucial. And we were joking, but I was like, let Papa take a look at those real quick. And she's like, oh, shiny. I'm like, yeah, let Daddy take a look at the shiny one. Oh, look, this one's a bug. Oh, yeah, you take a look at the bug one. And let Daddy look at the shiny one. I'm on eBay. I literally pulled up eBay. I was like, how much is this mother? There was a shiny something. I don't know what the Pokemon are these days. I have no idea, but there was a shiny something.
But look, hey, we're not here to talk about McDonald's. We have an incredible paranormal story in store for you listeners today. So as always, kick back, relax, and let Mr. Rory, the storyteller, take you on an incredible journey all the way through American history.
Oh, right.
Actually, let me reword that. That didn't sound that sexy. I think I could probably jazz it up. That didn't sound that cool.
I'm not like trying to do a citizenship test.
Let me sex it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about one of the scariest,
Okay.
most terrifying, deadly moments in American transit engineering.
All right, well, you had us there for the
For a
start,
second,
but actually,
yeah, I actually lost it.
that actually sounds more boring. So this is about train?
Ghost trains!
Okay.
Add some reverb and thunder and shit to that.
What were you thinking?
Yeah.
You're going to teach us all about American history.
Well, it's the history of a specific train line. I'm not doing it justice.
Chapter 1, The Alamo.
This is a great case. You're gonna love it. Let's dive right in. But first, before we do, a little reminder that you can get every episode of this podcast ad-free over on patreon.com/This Paranormal Life. It's the best way to support the show. So head on over there if you want to get a bunch of cool rewards and even get a shout out at the end of the episode. All right, we need to dive in today's story. The year is 1874, and a lone huntsman named Frank Weber was exploring the cold wilderness of Massachusetts. As he slowly trekked along the banks of the Deerfield River, he heard a noise in the distance and readied his rifle. But despite being in a place literally called Deerfield, this didn't sound like a deer in the field. It sounded like a human. Frank lowered his gun and followed the noises. He pushed his way through the thick brush until eventually he came face to face with what he was looking for. A long crack in the side of the Hoosac mountain range. A fissure just large enough to fit a human body. And as he stepped closer, he heard the noise once again. Worried that someone had become lost or even stuck in the cave, Frank decided to light his lantern and enter. He shuffled through the tight crevice, into the darkness, raising his lantern to illuminate the tunnel. It was huge, stretching far into the distance. And it wasn't long before he discovered he wasn't alone. Frank claimed that in the low light, he could see dozens of shadowy men, all hammering at the cave's walls with pickaxes. But despite their tools clashing against the rocks, there was no noise at all. "Hello? Are you fellas working in here?" There was no response. Before Frank could ask another question, he was struck over the head, losing consciousness immediately. 3 days later, he was found by a rescue team. Frank had accidentally entered the Hoosac Tunnel, also known as the Bloody Pit.
Whoa. So he couldn't hear their tools making contact with anything. He heard the next sound though. Boom! Crack! Over his skull, a spade against the back of his head.
Yeah. This is going to be our subject of investigation today, Kit. The Hoosac Tunnel and its strange and dark history and origins.
The funny thing, one of the many funny things about reading this era of history is, like in the modern day, countries like America and some others have, problems with gun control.
Yeah.
And a bleeding heart liberal like me supports gun control. But as soon as you start telling a story like this, where this guy's wandering through the woods, it's 150 years ago, and he hears a sound, I'm like, I sure hope he has a gun. Like, yeah, actually, Second Amendment is pretty cool when it's midnight and you're in a field. No, don't unclip this out, all right? I don't want anyone putting the American national anthem behind me saying this. But between you and me, brother, I'm going to need a rifle if it's what's happening in this story.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I think in the longer, more detailed version of this story, when he's inside the tunnel, someone or something steals his gun off him and hits him over the head with it.
Okay.
So if anything, he probably needed a little more gun control.
Yeah, he had lost control of his gun.
That motherfucker did not have control of his rifle. We are going to find out why this tunnel, the Hoosac Tunnel, has the reputation that it has today. But to do so, we need to dive back in time, all the way to the 1870s.
Thought we were already in the 1870s.
We were in 1874.
So, all right.
1874.
So we're going to stay in the 1870s.
We're going to go back to the early 1870s. A bustling time in America's history, the Second Industrial Revolution, and the recent completion of the Transcontinental Railroad meant that the country's passion for train travel was at an all-time high. Well, because people were buzzing on trains, engineers worked around the clock, building railway lines across the country, working to create an America connected by the most powerful and efficient mode of transport, trains. But flash forward to today. We know that America really doesn't have any long-distance passenger trains. Is it because the automobile industry illegally lobbied the government to subsidize roads and air travel, essentially taking bribes by private companies to destroy critical infrastructure in their own country? Or did something paranormal happen way back in 1872? Let's find out.
I'm not gonna query that until the end of the episode.
Our story begins in New England, 1851. Back again 20 years. And engineers were working on a railway to connect the city of Boston to the upstate districts of New York. They just had one problem: hills. Which is really the hardest part about building a railway track. In the industry, they call it the Achilles heel.
Nice.
Thank you. Just one little joke. It's going to be plenty more train puns as we lay down the tracks in front of us. In order to complete this track, the railway would have to find a way through the Hoosac mountain range, an enormous stretch of mountainous terrain in western Massachusetts. Luckily, the solution was pretty simple: smash straight through it. And so, plans for the Hoosac Tunnel were created. Unfortunately, though, tunnel construction at this time was brutal. There was a lack of ventilation, tunnels would randomly collapse, and on top of that, it was 1851, so your paycheck was probably a loaf of bread and polio.
I thought it was 1870.
I said we went back in time 20 more years.
My bad.
1851.
Sorry.
And yes, then I said we went back to 1870s, and then I said we went back to forward to 1874.
Third date in,
1851. Are you happy?
Yep.
But workers were not deterred by these conditions. They knew that blasting their way through Hoosac Mountain was their only option. So armed with pickaxes and what I assume were Looney Tunes style sticks of dynamite, workers began constructing the tunnel. Little did they know, they were digging themselves into more than just a literal hole. And by the time this tunnel was finished, almost 200 of them would already be dead.
Yeah, probably from the dynamite. So are you trying to say it's paranormal?
A lot of it is dynamite related. Yes, most of the casualties. Or I think you'll find, Kit, there might be some ghosts involved.
You might say that we're about to go from a boom to boom.
I like that. I like that
Phil,
a lot.
can you tighten that up in the edit? Because you could, I think on the...
I'm not saying there's definitely going to be some ghosts, but there dynamite. The dino might be. So Phil, whichever one was better, you could like...
Hey, there's not a competition. I think there's room for both.
Well, it's not a competition, I guess, so just cut Kit's then. We'll just keep mine. Because I think like I'm the narrator, so it'd be weird if he starts leading the story at some point.
I think actually people want to hear less of you and more of me, because you've been talking a lot. I mean, no one even knows what year it is. So.
Wow. Well, I'm trying to keep this story on the tracks. It's another little train pun for you. And I got plenty more. And if you don't like them, you can choose a different podcast to be a part of.
The pun is really aggressive. It's like masking very aggressive sentiments. You can go yourself. I want that.
You can kill yourself. The first incident occurred on the afternoon of March 20th. Workers Ned Brinkman and Billy Nash were setting up dynamite down in the tunnel, while their colleague Ringo Kelly waited for them to emerge and give them a go-ahead to detonate.
Yeah, those are the names of three men who'll be dead in two minutes. You could just picture those in the local newspaper.
Yeah.
Ringo Nash, what were their
Ringo
Billy
Kelly,
Nash,
Ned
Ringo
Brinkman.
Oh, God. Yeah, they're not going to make it past 27.
Yeah, dead man Billy Nash sounds like an old-timey pirate. Guys, I'm getting bored out here. You almost done in there?
Absolutely not, Ringo. We're still placing dynamite.
Yeah, we'll let you know when we're ready for detonation. All Ringo heard were those last words. Ready for detonation? He slammed down on the T-bar, igniting the dynamite. A thunderous boom rang through the tunnel, and rocks and debris collapsed from the ceiling. Damn, that was crazy! Hey, Ned, Billy, you guys all right? Guys?
A shoe drops beside it. A single boot.
When the dust had cleared, Ringo discovered that Ned and Billy hadn't escaped in time.
Oh, shit. The cruel irony of this is this incident was caused by bad hearing, which is only furthered by each explosion each man is a part of.
Right, there should be a limit to how many explosions
Yes.
you can be a part of.
Don't make the guy who's in charge of hearing ready for detonation, don't have him put some earplugs in, put some earmuffs on.
Yeah, because by the time you get to explosion 10, you're going to say, should I go now? Someone's going to say no, and you're going to hear go.
Yeah.
And you push down on that T-bar. Boom. So I think limit every person to either 5 explosions at the workplace or 3 EDM festivals.
Right.
And then you're no longer allowed to be the guy who detonates the bombs.
This is why bedroom safe words exist, is because phrases like ready for detonation are sexy and fun.
Yeah, I've
and
said that in the
cool.
bedroom.
That's why you
100%.
need to make it something like enchiladas. Just like a word that just wouldn't come up ordinarily.
Right.
Fair enough. Maybe the fellas kind of carving out this tunnel, placing dynamite, maybe one of them would be like, damn, I'm really hungry. Is it lunch yet? I could really go for some enchiladas.
Right. It's
But
not going to come out a
something
lot.
else, you know?
Yes. Swordfish.
Yeah.
That's not coming out in the bedroom. Or I guess it is if whatever you're into. But yeah, something like ready for detonation doesn't work.
You know, it's the 18...
Sometimes you don't have a choice when detonation's going to happen. Sometimes they could say, I'm not ready. You're like, well, it's going to detonate.
Whatever's in the way is going to catch a stray, okay?
I'm just letting you know in advance.
You know, it's the 1850s. Just make the safe word something they would never normally say. Like,
Healthcare.
here's my pronouns. You know, just anything like that.
Right. Twitter. Not a word back then. That would freak them out.
Snapchat.
Snapchat. Okay. That definitely doesn't. Yeah. Unless I say the words TikTok live, you don't push down on the detonator. In the aftermath of the incident, Ringo Kelly was devastated. He blamed himself for the death of his... I'm sorry, it was
He
funny.
should. He should. Sorry, you say that as if there's anyone else to blame. You know what the crazy thing is? He felt slightly responsible for what happened.
He actually thought the whole thing was kind of his fault in some up way. Like he had something to do with it. He blamed himself for the death of his 2 colleagues and became withdrawn from the rest of the crew. His co-workers described him as skittish, nervous, and would find him wandering around the tunnels alone, talking to himself in the darkness.
Skittish. Take the T-bar away. He's lost his trigger finger.
Twitchy. Unpredictable.
Listen, Ringo, I know you blame yourself for their deaths, but you gotta move on, man. We got work to do.
They're not dead, Carl.
What are you talking about?
They're following me down here. I can see them in the shadows. I hear their voices calling me. It's them. It's Ned and Billy. Several days later, Ringo Kelly disappeared. They searched the site up and down, but there was no sign of him. Eventually, his body was found 2 miles deep in the tunnel, right at the same spot that Ned and Billy had been killed.
I'm sure you were going to say they found his body 2 miles away. The dynamite blew it so high into the atmosphere.
On the contrary, kid, Ringo Kelly had been strangled to death in the tunnels. Was Ringo Kelly strangled by his frustrated co-workers who also agreed that it was entirely his fault that those people died and they killed him along with the others inside of that cave? Or did the ghosts of Ned and Billy lure him into the shadows and reach through the realms of the dead into the world of the living and throttle him to death for revenge?
Interesting.
Just 2 theories. We don't have to decide now. We got more to come. The workers believed that Ringo had been driven insane with the guilt of killing his 2 friends. That's why he was seeing figures and hearing voices. But before long, others on site began to report the same experiences. Strange voices in the dark, shadowy figures spotted deep in the tunnels. It was as if they were tunneling straight into hell. On a number of occasions, workers would hear horrific cries of pain echoing from down in the darkness. They'd rush down the tunnel with lanterns, ready to help whoever was hurt, only to find there was nobody down there after all. Before long, these stories spread across all the workers, leading to a mass walkout, as they believed that the ghosts of Ned and Billy, Ringo, and others were now haunting the tunnel.
Very interesting.
This is a real thing. This actually happened during the construction of this tunnel. I know it feels like 1860s was a long time ago, but...
Don't throw in another date!
Well, they've been working on it for...
date since!
That's what happens when you move through time. The date changes.
Nah, because we've gone backwards 3 times and then forwards once or twice.
Do you know how long it took them to make this tunnel? 25 years
Okay.
it took
I didn't
to
realize.
construct this tunnel.
I thought that was a rhetorical question.
No.
Okay.
It took a really long time. We're going to be moving through the span of 25 years. Because that's how, you know how like...
Yeah, if Billy hadn't died full stop, he would have died of old age.
Well, you know how it's like a cliche that construction jobs always take 3 times as long as you want? Imagine if you get ghosts involved.
Yeah.
All right? That's going to really increase the time.
Yeah.
Usually people just say the builders are lazy and work doesn't get done on time and they draw it out so they can just charge you more money. These guys are having to bring priests onto site to fight off the ghosts while they do their work. Yeah, that's going to draw out the project a little bit.
I don't know if you know that priests don't make a lot of money, so they got to make it somehow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, do you remember that story? I loved that story that I think it was like a Russian priest or something got like kicked out of the clergy or kicked out of the church because he was too swagged out. He was like, I don't know where he was getting the money from, but he was like turning up to like services wearing like a Gucci belt, like Balenci shoes, like this crazy drip.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can have like old-timey swag, like a couple chains or like a cross or something.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? Is that like
there is a line.
The church that they're kind of decked out in gold, have like a gold staff.
Yeah.
But you can't have a Hermes scarf. You can't have a Gucci belt.
I think even if my priest had an Apple Watch, I'd be like, this feels wrong. I don't know. This feels weird.
I kind of respect it. I respect the swagoo.
Like, if my priest was even in Crocs, I'd be like, I know you're old and you want to be comfortable because you're standing a long time, but like, didn't Jesus wear like sandals and shit? At least have some Nike slides or something.
Imagine he had like metal grills in his mouth, like Gucci Mane. He could barely kind of speak. He's like, and Mark said to the disciples, what? I said, Mark said to the disciples.
My plan is to get raptured and act like I don't know nobody.
Riff Raff as a priest.
Luckily, the project managers for the Hoosac tunnel did have a solution. No one would quit working on the tunnels if they could prove the tunnels weren't haunted. It's just that simple. So, in 1868, they hired Paul Travers, a highly respected mechanical engineer, to come investigate the site and hopefully dispel all the silly rumors about the Hoosac tunnel being haunted. So the project managers gathered the workers to assure them that everything was fine.
Evening, everyone. As we speak, mechanical engineer Paul Travers is down in the tunnel, investigating the source of these so-called ghost noises. Now, he assured us before heading in that it's most likely the wind blowing through the tunnel network, a common and completely normal phenomenon that is nothing to worry about. Oh, look, here it comes now from the tunnel. Well, Paul, what's the verdict, old friend?
Paul Travers was ice white. Paul Travers said, I heard the screams of the dead. Thousands of them. I haven't experienced such horror since I fought in the military.
That's a funny joke, Paul. Paul's a funny guy. Guys, no, don't leave.
I think if I saw Paul coming out ice white, I'd be like, actually, you know what? That doesn't matter what Paul says. I think we all gotta find out for ourselves what we think about the tunnel. So I think it's fine. What do you guys think? Yeah. Unfortunately, the worst incident at the Hoosac tunnel was yet to come. A month after Paul Travers' visit, a buildup of naphtha gas resulted in a huge explosion. 13 contractors working down in the tunnel were caught in the blast. Most died immediately, but the others weren't so lucky. With the exit to the surface now sealed, the workers who survived the blast were forced to go deeper into the darkness. By the time help had reached them, no one was left alive. Some of the bodies were never recovered. Others slipped through the cracks of the mountain, turning up in nearby towns or fields for years to come. As you can imagine, in the following months, morale was low.
Oh, well, let's just pause. Time out.
Yeah, of course.
Quickly.
Do you want to know what year it is?
I would love to.
1868. 1868. Because a month after
Major-
Paul Travers visited, the big boom happened. But yes, you had another question, sir?
So you admitted there was a gas leak in the cave this entire time.
No, I believe the naphtha gas is not.
So, I'm sorry, and also
Hold up.
You're telling me naphtha gas is different to laughter gas?
I believe this was, yes, seeing a lot of stuff that this is a natural gas, but I believe this was
sure.
a man-made incident.
Because it was.
This was a man-made
What do you mean it's a man-made it? Because it's just because I was hoping to maybe bring this up that
Hold up.
you know, you start digging into the earth, maybe uncover some kind of one of the many millions or trillions of pockets of natural gas here on Earth, which if inhaled can lead to kind of loopy circumstances. I, for one, would know given that I experienced a gas leak on my recent holiday.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that actually did happen. Okay, researching it now.
And I lost several brain cells.
They say a candle in the hoist that they were using ignited naphtha fumes
Yep,
that had leaked from a gasometer lamp. Gasometer lamp?
sure.
I don't know what that is. But it wasn't gas that had kind of leaked out of the mountain. I think it was probably leaking from something that they had brought with them.
Oh, good. They were bringing gas in and inhaling it. That's great.
It was their own gas, yeah. I'll have you know.
Getting higher on their own supply. That's fine. I mean...
Yeah, it wasn't gas leaks.
Let's just...
Well, it was gas
a
leaks, but it
leak.
wasn't
So
leaking
to
from...
be clear, there was lots of gas.
All right.
And it just so happened to be the one day there was a naked flame, everything exploded. So I just wanted to bring this up earlier, and I've now said it, and we'll kind of move on, that I was going to bring up the possibility
Don't love
of
this.
gas.
Don't love this at all.
Playing with people's...
All right, yeah, sure, fine. That can happen.
I will
That is a
say, I
possibility.
experienced a gas leak a couple of months ago. I got very dizzy. I felt very sick.
Did you see anything?
I didn't hear the screams of the innocent, personally.
Right.
Yeah.
Or any shadowy figures?
I wasn't strangled either.
You were hit over the head with your own gun?
Touch wood. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
It's something to say that even if it was gas, every single person is having the exact same experience. And a lot of those symptoms are not gas related. Yes, they are, mother.
Yes.
Yeah. Hearing the screams,
The exact
thousand screams of the
same
dead,
things.
voices calling them into the darkness, that ain't gas. Let me
Could
tell
be.
you. As I said, morale at this time was low. But you know what was up? Ghost sightings. If the death of 2 workers was enough to kick off some hauntings, imagine how bad things got after the explosion incident. On one occasion, a contracted worker was down in the tunnel when he spotted a line of men sullenly marching deeper into the darkness, with their heads hanging low, pickaxes slung over their shoulders. The worker cried out, "Hey, where are you guys going? We're closing for the day." But there was no response. He watched as the line of men walked down into the tunnel towards a deep pit of muddy water, disappearing as they reached the water's edge. When the worker ran over to see where they'd gone, he spotted a black object floating in the middle of the darkness. He raised his lantern to try and illuminate the object, and suddenly, a horrific scream rang out in the tunnel. It was so loud the worker had to cover his ears, and when it finally stopped, he realized he was looking at the missing remains of one of the workers who tragically died just months prior in the explosion. But by the time he could make it over to the water's edge, the body was gone, as if it was never there to begin with.
Okay, these guys have lost their minds. No one has any
All right,
grasp
it's the
of
gas.
what's happening.
It's definitely
No
the
one.
gas.
This is basically Frodo wandering through the swamp. It's like, look, they need to just start briefing people like Frodo. It's like, look, All right, buddy. Well, what's your name? Jacob. Great. Welcome to the team. Go in there and dig a hole and don't look left and don't look right and don't look down, don't look up. Ideally, keep your eyes closed and your ears closed.
Yeah, because you will hear screams and you will see your dead loved ones calling you deeper into the darkness of the tunnel.
It's a weird feature of the tunnel, but look, this will be all worth it because Boston's on the other side. I don't know what to tell you. The pay's fine. See you at lunch.
This is, because that is a Lord of the Rings thing, isn't it? Where they go through the swamp, right?
Yeah.
Where they try and lure you into the water by showing you nice things or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's it. It's a very classic siren song.
I had a very similar experience once where I had to wake up very early one morning to do a photo shoot for some work I was doing with my friends. And we were all incredibly hungover. I think the photo shoot was at like 9 a.m. We all looked like absolute dog shit. And we were taking photos down by this canal in East London. And in between shots, I was looking down into the canal. And there was just at the bottom of the waterbed, just a perfectly sealed bottle of Corona resting in the dirt.
You don't know it's perfectly sealed.
And I turned to my friend and I was like, I can't tell if that's really down there or this is one of those rivers that shows you your truest heart desires to try and lure you to the bottom.
You're like, whoa, check out that Corona. He's like, that's a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Okay, yeah, it's the latter.
It's safe to say that things were going badly at this point. Not only were they massively behind schedule, but workers at the site were fighting off ghosts and spirits on a daily basis. On the 25th of June, 1874, 23 years after construction began.
And yet the same date is where we started our story.
Similar date.
I thought we started in 1874.
Okay, that was a test.
We did.
You passed it, so well done. The same date that we started our story.
Yep.
23 years after construction began.
Yep.
The drilling operations manager, James R. McKinstry, arrived at the site. I assume, at this point, he was just furious about all these paranormal claims holding up progress, because he brought with him university lecturer Dr. Clifford J. Owens to try and dispel any and all rumors about the tunnel being haunted. So McKinstry unlocked the gate, and the two men headed inside. Now, what's great about this part of the story is that Dr. Clifford Owens actually wrote about his experience in the tunnel, which I can now just read verbatim on the podcast.
Got it.
Because he's a old-timey, smart university lecturer, I'm of course just going to give him a British accent. He wrote, "We had traveled about 2 miles into the shaft when we finally halted to a rest. Except for the dim, smoky light cast by our lamps, the place was cold and dark as a tomb. James and I stood there, talking for a minute or two. We were just about to turn back, when suddenly I heard a strange, mournful sound. It was just as if someone or something was suffering in great pain. The next thing I saw was a dim light coming from the tunnel from a westerly direction. At first I believed it was probably a workman with a lantern. Yet as the light grew closer, it took on a strange blue color and appeared to change shape almost into the form of a human being without a head. The light seemed to be floating along, about a foot or two above the tunnel floor. In the next instant, it felt as if the temperature had suddenly dropped and a cold, icy chill ran up and down my spine. The headless form came so close, I could have reached out and touched it, but I was too terrified to move. For what seemed like an eternity, McKinstry and I just stood there, gaping at the headless thing. The blue light remained motionless for a few seconds, as if it were actually looking us over, then floated off towards the east end of the shaft and vanished into thin air. He finished with, I am above all a realist, nor am I prone to repeating gossip and wild tales that defy a reasonable explanation. However, in all truth, I cannot deny what James McKinstry and I witnessed with our own eyes." Pretty crazy stuff, Kit. We now have multiple people who had no part in the actual construction of this tunnel come down and investigate the site for themselves. And they're reciting very similar claims to the people who have been in this tunnel and seen these things.
Yeah, it does kind of seem as if something is going on. I mean, I think the hardcore skeptics would maybe argue here that we have a kind of chain of events and tales. Maybe the tunnel's reputation precedes it in a sense, that people are going in somewhat primed, I suppose would be the word they would use, primed with the information. But I think that would be the most hardcore skeptic position. I don't think it's too crazy here to suggest that something is going on, whether that be of a naturalistic cause or whether it's paranormal or not.
You think these people, even if they are skeptics, they have heard stories of ghosts and disembodied voices, so that when they enter the tunnel and breathe in the gas, they too see what those before them have seen.
Yes, essentially.
I love the idea of these two guys walking into the tunnel and they're like, I mean, it looks like a totally normal tunnel to me. I don't see anything crazy. Oh, shit. Deep breath. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible. But I do like this style of ghost story, this kind of Onibi style of, floating orbs and balls and things like that of light. I like that style of ghost. It's quite interesting or believable in some way.
Yeah, and the cool thing is usually when we have ghosts that appear in a story, we have to reach a point where we inevitably jump back 100 years and find out where the ghost came from, what their motive is. We kind of know what it is here because we talked about it. It's all of these people that have died during the construction of this tunnel. Now, we know that people just dying en masse in any location doesn't necessarily mean that location is going to become haunted. But could these guys have stumbled onto some sort of paranormal site, whether it's a ley line crossing or, some reasoning behind why ghosts and paranormal activity would be heightened in this specific area? We don't know.
What I do know is that, in cases like this where we have people hearing kind of disturbing, disembodied voices, in something like a tunnel, kind of a cry from a soul of the past, who's not yet moved on to the next world. It always carries, as we say, this kind of a gravitas of like, someone who's left behind with unfinished business, but also the time period they're from kind of leans on this kind of like seriousness behind the whole thing. There's always a darkness, a moodiness, a seriousness. And a little bit like the way just in old photographs, people were never smiling. It kind of always seems like they're not having a good time. And I wonder if, ghost sightings of the future in which we're the ghosts, our generation, a generation who have had much easier lives, at least in the developed world, and are probably a lot kind of sillier people later into their lives. Sure. I wonder if those ghost sightings will change at all. I like to imagine that those disembodied voices will get a bit more colorful. Like someone someday will be like walking down a dark hallway and they'll hear the disembodied voice of like Fetty Wap.
Right.
They'll just be like, yeah, baby. It's like, what was that? Turn the lantern around. 1738. Whoa, what is happening?
Yeah, ghosts are just going to be kind of sillier, I guess, in the future. People grew up fast in the olden days.
Yeah.
It's like anytime you see those videos that are from like the BBC archives where they're like, we interviewed children about what the future was going to be like. And these little 12-year-olds are in like a 3-piece suit with a pocket watch in their hands. And they're like, oh, you just turned 11 today. What do you think the future is going to be like? And he's like, well, I think the future is going to be quite peculiar, isn't it? I reckon that penny sweets will cost 2 shillings. And, working at the mines will take up most of the waking day. It's crazy. They're like old people already.
You just reminded me of I saw the other day, people sharing an ad. It was like an ad for like a bank account or something like that from like 1998. And it was like, it was trying to like paint a terrifying picture of the future and why you should like invest sensibly using the right bank.
Yeah.
And they were like, scientists say that in the year 2030, lunch will cost $16. and people now are like, oh my God, they were right.
Hey, all I'm going to say is Don't worry. This Paranormal Life, we're investing properly in the future. As I said, this week we're going to purchase 30 to 40 Happy Meals from McDonald's in search of the rare Pokemon cards, which we will seal immediately before we get ketchup on them.
Yeah.
And then they will only grow in value exponentially, I can assume.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have a couple fries.
You gotta eat
You always get a
burgers.
little hungry, like while you're, you kind of like,
It's a hard day's
you open
work.
up the box, make sure everything's there. Well, there's a couple loose fries at the bottom. Why do they always tip the chips in? Sorry, fries.
We can't go back to McDonald's.
Why do
Jack.
they always?
We can't go back. We're doing so good. We can't go back to McDonald's. Check.
Hey, I used to work in hospitality. Respect service workers, respect hospitality workers. They pack a lot of fries in a day, though. Why do they? Like, it's surely for the 2 seconds it takes to carefully just place the packet of fries in the thing. Nah, just upside down, pouring it in like a pack of salt. And then presumably shaking it up.
Ben, some of my fries look like they were thrown in by a major league pitcher. They are slammed against that box.
They were clocked at 180 miles per hour going into the box.
Oh, you got McFlurries? You got McNuggets? How about you give a what happens to my fries when you put them in the box, Chief?
There's 3 fries in the little fry container and 85 fries just loose and cold on the base of the bag. It's a minor complaint. It's a minor complaint.
Oh, we're getting distracted. Let's get back to the story.
The stuff that really matters.
On the 9th of February, 1875, the first train went through the completed Hoosac Tunnel 25 years after construction started and almost 200 dead workers later.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This was, to be clear, this was just construction back then.
Yeah, this is probably a pretty responsible project, I would say. Only 200 dead workers?
Yeah, like...
Over 25 years? What is that? Someone do the math.
It's a mere 10 deaths a year.
Yeah, some of them were 35 anyway. They were bound to die at any second.
It's
Back in this time.
Yeah, back in the day, and to an extent today. I mean, if you look at let's say things like the World Cup in the Middle East, Qatar, kind of big builds like that in Saudi Arabia and stuff. I mean, yeah, it takes a lot of deaths, sadly, to build these things.
Yeah, still there's a ton of slave labor even today. I know, reading about this case, it kind of reminded me of like those pictures you see, the famous ones of like the New York, is it the New York construction guys on the steel beam up in
Back
space?
when men were men, innit?
And these dudes they don't even have a rope around them.
Yeah.
Like they are just sitting on this thing, eating a packed lunch. Like in the middle of the sky.
It's like zero gravity up there.
It's
I don't even know how the
crazy.
pickles are even staying in the bread.
It's like, had we not invented fear yet? Like, surely you were afraid. Like, it would be so embarrassing to be the one guy in that crew that's just like, everyone else is like jumping between girders, like throwing sandwiches at each other, and you're like shaking it, and you're like, you guys taking a picture over there? Cool. Maybe we take it on the beam that's not floating. We could take it on this beam. We need a guy to take the picture, right? Maybe I could be the there was a seagull past me. Oh, I'd be so jumpy if I was up there. And I'm fine with heights.
The other guys are probably doing that shit they do too in school where they go, save your life.
Oh my
they
God,
push you off and then grab you.
Yeah. Do you remember a friend did that to me once when we were back home? He did the saves your life thing where he grabs you, but he didn't grab me. And he just shoved me. And he didn't
ended your life.
He didn't realize I was like walking on a wall, but he didn't realize on the other side of the wall was not a floor. It was a cliff. And he just went, saved your life, shoved me, and I disappeared. And I went down like 2 stories into a bush.
I do remember that.
I was like, I think you just killed me.
You kind of just backflip off it. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I do remember that because I think the kid got into trouble, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. And it was kind of such a funny one for the teacher to be like, what were you thinking? They're like, I don't know. It's like, well, I obviously didn't really think that was going to happen, but I also did push him off a wall down like 2 stories.
Yeah. Didn't think that one through.
Wasn't me, by the way.
End your life.
End your life. The steel beams I don't know how that works because I feel like here in London, if you so much as went up to the top of a hill, if you went up Blackheath,
Yeah.
and you're just like, or like in Greenwich or something, you're sat at the top of a hill. It's windy, and that's only up like 20 meters.
Yeah.
Never mind being up like 2,000 feet. It's like, was it not at least like,
Look at these dudes. That's crazy. I'm just looking at the picture now. That's crazy.
and also the logistics. I forgot
one of them doesn't have a shirt on.
how was it that warm?
One of them is
And, like,
nips out on the girder.
and the logistics of, I didn't remember they're all on one beam. So they all had to shuffle along on their bums. Like, you can't imagine one of you is just like, I need the toilet. It's like, all right,
All right, everyone
you gotta wait for
downbeam.
20 lads to finish their sandwiches and then manually climb down like 500 meters to a toilet.
That's wild.
Unless you just piss off the beam.
Okay, reading more about it, this was during the construction of the Rockefeller Center in Manhattan.
Okay, not even
Apparently, it was a staged photograph arranged as a publicity stunt. So I don't think it was just like a casual
Yeah.
guys on their lunch break thing, but I think it was.
But
I
it
think
is
they
real.
were. Yeah, I
it's
think
not Photoshop.
they were sitting on a steel beam 850 feet above ground on the 69th floor of the near completed building.
Nice.
Holy shit. So they must have just been like, on the beam and then maybe like a crane lifted them up to like take the photo or something. I assume maybe it was that. Still insane. I'm happy to say that the deaths were not for nothing. The tunnel did get used a lot. So in that sense, I guess it was a success.
But you can actually drive from Boston to New York pretty fast, so it's all good.
I believe it is actually still in use today, although reports of ghost sightings and paranormal activity have died down. I guess it is harder to experience the paranormal when you are blasting past it in a train going 90 miles per hour.
Yeah.
That's just common sense. However, I will say during the 1970s, the tunnel's history became more popular amongst horror fans and paranormal investigators, many of whom visited the site to examine it for themselves. One of those investigators was Bernard Hastuba, a paranormal investigator who was skeptical of the claims made by the people who had visited the site, so he decided to walk the entire length of the tunnel in order to prove once and for all that it wasn't actually haunted. He went into the tunnel and was literally never seen again.
Yeah, because it's an active railway.
Well, yes, at that time, I think there were trains blasting through it.
I've heard that the third rail is particularly haunted.
I believe that is a true story. Paranormal investigator went in the tunnel, never came out. I don't know if a train also went into the tunnel in the opposite direction. Yeah, pretty sad, pretty scary, pretty spooky stuff.
Isn't it sad that in real life we have to sacrifice many men to build a tunnel rather than imagine we could just, hopefully in the future with the power of AI, we will be able to just, like in Looney Tunes, just paint a tunnel on a wall.
To kill many men?
No, to build the tunnel.
Right.
Remember in Looney Tunes?
I was like, we could kill those men way faster. Paint a fake
They'll
tunnel and
smack
they'll
into
go
it.
straight into it.
But all you had to do was you would just paint it, and then granted, Wile E. Coyote thought he was going to trick Roadrunner into smashing into the thing, but Roadrunner would actually just, the tunnel was completely functional.
That pretty much brings us to the modern day and completes our journey backwards through time into the creation and the long paranormal history of the Hoosac Tunnel.
You're
Thank
right,
you.
it was backwards through time and forwards, and then backwards again, and then forwards a couple
A
times.
little bit all over the place.
Little
That's
bit.
fun. Keep showing your toes,
Kept
you
me
know?
on my toes.
I actually really love this case. I think it's fun. I think, as I said, it's not just the idea of a location being haunted, but it's these very unique types of hauntings I find really interesting, which is hearing voices trying to lure you into the cave, seeing shadowy figures. And we're kind of left with this problem where we have to decide, did this location become haunted because all of these people died building the tunnel? Or did they actually tunnel themselves into some sort of paranormal area where the paranormal was amplified by the deaths of these people? It kind of reminds me of different cases we've covered before, similar to one of my favorites and a crowd favorite, which is the Money Pit.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Money Pit episode?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the island, Oak Island, the Oak Island Money Pit, where people believed that there was treasure buried for some reason on this island, and people decided to just dig a hole forever and ever into the earth to the point where the hole was collapsing. People were dying every day, and people decided the hole was cursed.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking accountability for the fact that there was no treasure and they really should have stopped digging a long time ago.
Yeah, it feels like an ancient Greek myth about human nature, but it actually is a thing that happened.
Yeah. So we're kind of left with those questions today as to whether or not we really believe that these deaths happened and these things were seen because this place was cursed or paranormal, or whether or not we think the deaths were just caused by bad health and safety in olden days construction. That obviously wouldn't explain all the other things we talked about, the disembodied voices, the floating figures, these skeptics coming from outside of the project and still having paranormal experiences. Yes, there may have been gas. Gas may have played a factor in today's story. But, I still think there's stuff to talk about here.
Yeah, it is tough. I think there's lots of parallels. I think another parallel would be somewhere like the Edinburgh Vaults.
Yes.
Somewhere we investigated. Now, not only because they're dark and cavernous, but I think that's why I started going down this train of thought about...
Train of thought. Nice, dude.
Nice. Hoosac. What did we... Let's do more jokes
Just
about that
don't.
son of a bitch.
No. Move on. You had it.
But it made me think about this concept of priming, because we, sadly, as famous as the Edinburgh Vaults are, and as seemingly, the entire cottage industry based around exploring the haunted vaults, we ultimately decided we didn't think it was really paranormal.
Based off of our own investigation on location.
And some of that comes back to these long-standing questions of priming, this idea that is somewhere just haunted just because a lot of people say it is.
Yeah.
That, if you hear enough stories, then you kind of come to expect a certain set of experiences. I don't know if that's what's going on here, but there's definitely parallels there. The idea of kind of, these are spaces which lend themselves to paranormal sightings. They are so dark you can barely see, and you need lanterns in order to see. You had sort of extremely bad visibility. They said it's smoky, dark, freezing.
Yeah. People are dying all around you. There are random explosions going off in every direction.
That's right. There's, not to mention the kind of unique acoustics of a cave system that's being dug away creates kind of, would easily create bizarre auditory effects. You're going to hear things you would never normally hear in nature or in a indoor space.
Yeah.
Sounds would echo around in very strange ways. Not even getting into the lack of oxygen
Sure.
and the potential for gas leaks.
Well, they had a ventilation system. I just believe it exploded at one point. So,
exploded and they were a little slow about replacing it. So that's all to, it's not to say I don't believe it. I think it's actually pretty compelling, the kind of consistency of some of the reports. We'll definitely have all the ingredients for a delicious paranormal misunderstanding as well.
Not a hoax.
No.
But yes, a misunderstanding. I can definitely see that. Yeah. And I think we should take that into consideration. This isn't seeing a beheaded ghost at Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. This is seeing a shadowy figure inside of a cave in the 1860s during horrible work times. And yes, that is an important part of today's story. I'm happy to kick things off in today's investigation. I think when it comes down on a conclusion, yes, there are a lot of reasons why this could have been misunderstandings. I like that term a lot, a paranormal misunderstanding.
Because it doesn't blame you for the investigation whatsoever.
It doesn't blame me. And am I to blame at all, Kit? Because this week I'm giving it a yes.
Ooh.
I like this story.
Very interesting.
I like it a lot. I like the history. And I think we have enough consistent testimony from individual witnesses who are separated from the project and their own experiences to convince me there's something paranormal going on in this tunnel. Whether or not that is the ghost of the workers that died there, or whether that's the workers themselves uncovering some sort of paranormal activity as they dig deeper into this ancient mountain range. So I'm giving it a yes this week.
Very interesting. I am going to controversially give it a no.
Ooh, can't say I didn't see that one coming.
Can say you didn't see it coming. Hey, well, I'm happy for you because you goddamn son of a bitch have almost never given a yes on a ghost case.
That's not true.
But I'm
Simply not
pleased.
true.
I'm pleased that there is another yes in the ghost realm, in the ghostly realm.
You didn't want to join me?
I felt, did I feel a little hurt that, I've brought ghost cases before with photo evidence and we didn't even need that today apparently for a yes? Sure, it crossed my mind. But I don't know. Is there a gas leak in here? Maybe. Is that, because actually it feels like hell is freezing over the fact that Rory's given a ghost case a yes and I haven't.
You're like, who's that guy sitting across from me? I don't recognize him.
I hope he gets hit by a train.
Yes, I would have loved to provide more photo evidence for today's case, but
Sure.
1860s.
Had cameras.
No cameras, Hans.
Oh, yeah.
They
here
didn't
we
have
go.
cameras.
They
That's
definitely did.
right. No, they
did.
didn't. No, they didn't, I don't think.
Oh, mercy.
But hey, there you go. Let us know what you think. This was a great case.
The one photo Rory showed me today was of the New York construction worker sitting on a beam. That was our one visual reference point. Love it.
I have pictures of the Hoosac tunnel, but it's just like nowadays, you know? So it's like not that interesting.
That's the sad thing about old-timey construction projects is like you build that tunnel and then people forever will be like, yeah, wasn't that always there? It's like, no, a lot of guys died making that.
It
like,
took
all right.
25 years to make that hole. Yeah, it's kind of, there is some kind of cool stuff online because they obviously have like, I'm showing Kit right now, like a poster that was drawn up to promote the creation of the tunnel. So you can kind of see like a proper old-timey flyer that's like the Hoosac Tunnel, as if it's like a big attraction, you know?
Yeah, that's cool.
And it is fun whenever you investigate something kind of niche like this. You do accidentally end up also just learning a lot about this part of human history and the creation of these things.
Hey.
And it is quite interesting.
I mean, the railroad building era of American history is like the most brutal, kind of crazy time for all the immigrant communities who built the railways and worked on projects like this. But it's so mad because it also laid literally the foundation of the entire country. I mean, it happened all over the world. We take it for granted now that you could. I sent my mate this morning. I sent him I just came across a bunch of old songs from our childhood, and I sent him like 20 songs. It was just like, oh, this is funny. What's your email? Yeah, I'll just bang it over there. Emailed him it. The Mac makes that little noise when I hit send.
One. Great noise.
Very satisfying little noise. Back then, the was 30 years of construction. Hundreds of men died to send 20 songs by railway.
That whoosh noise was,
That's what the noise should be, to reflect the pain and suffering.
Whenever you went to a post office in the 1800s, they were like, okay, so we could send it first class. That'll be 25 men dead. Or we could send it second class. That's only 15 dead men. So that's kind of the price you have to pay right now because people are going to die on this journey to get your little postcard over to your grandmother in Boston.
That's like an episode of Black Mirror. Yeah.
Right. That's how long it takes.
You pay with deaths instead of money. But it's true. To simply get stuff from one place to the other. Now it's easy peasy. So there you go.
There you go. It's all easier. I really enjoyed this episode of the Hoosac Tunnel. It's a yes from me. It's a no from Kit. But hey, let us know what you think. Get in touch. You can email us at thisparanormallifepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the episode. You can also email in your own suggestions of cases you want us to cover or any of your own paranormal stories. You can also connect with listeners on the internet over on the Facebook Secret Society, or check out our Reddit, or get in touch with us on Instagram or YouTube. We have a great little community over on YouTube now who are leaving comments under every video, because if you didn't know, we also video all these podcasts and upload them to YouTube in full length, so you can see our pretty little faces while we host these cases.
Me and Rory have been on YouTube so long in various incarnations that we thought vlogs were called vlogs.
That's not a joke, genuinely. I actually thought it was called a
vlog.
vlog.
Roasted years ago. We'd be like, yeah, we uploaded a new vlog. People are like, what the f*** are you saying?
Is this a bit? I don't understand.
Talking about
Yeah, it's a bit. It's totally a bit.
Let me approach something.
Yes.
Because the other place to get good stuff from TPL is the patreon.com/this paranormal life. Oh! Because these two men suffer month in, month out to deliver beautiful bonus content to our patrons.
Exactly.
Over there. The link is in the description of this podcast or on YouTube. But I wanted to bring it up because let's talk about the latest bonus episode.
How'd you like to keep two men alive?
Yeah.
That's how you do it. By supporting us over on Patreon.
Yeah, we're not like on hunger strike or something. We're just...
No, but it does because it pays for the podcast and it like pays our salaries so I can afford bread
We do
and soup.
spend it on groceries as well. That's true.
We do. So it's the best way to keep this show alive, but also these two guys alive.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it. And also the coolest part is you actually get a ton of rewards by supporting us on the podcast. Kid's going to talk about them right now.
Well, I was in the middle of talking about it, and you derailed me. So this month's bonus episode, the main one...
like a train. I get it.
Yeah, true.
Derailed. Nice, dude.
You're
funny.
Month's bonus episode... Just let me talk.
No, you made me laugh, though. I want you to know that.
It's another mystery.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a mystery. Sorry, you're just interjecting so minorly.
Yeah. Just enough to distract you. It's the tiniest bit.
There's this one's bonus episode. Well, it's really last month. It's the latest one is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's really good. It is another paranormal mystery with some echoes of this in terms of, is it poltergeist activity? Is it ghost activity? Is it some other paranormal phenomenon as yet undiscovered by science? It's also set in Italy, in Sicily, and me and Rory do full Italian accents for the entire episode.
Not the entire episode, for
the
short
entire
portions.
I used
of the
AI
episode
to change the bits where we spoke normally into an Italiano accent.
Bad use of AI. Bad use of anything, of anyone's time. That is a bad idea. But it is a great episode. I have listened to it, and it is a fantastic one. There's tons of episodes like that over on Patreon, along with After Party episodes, which is a weekly show that we do where we talk about each case behind the scenes, what goes into it. We talk about our verdicts. So that means this Friday, we're going to be talking about this case. Let's see if Kid's still alive after the no that he gave. We'll see if he makes it.
I don't think it's a particularly controversial no.
Maybe the cost of this episode was one dead guy. So if I were you, Kit, I'd be a little afraid.
It's quite, it really took me by surprise, so it's kind of good in that respect.
You might want to start training now, because I'm gonna kill you.
All right, yeah.
So I lost it at the end there, but I needed to deliver that message. But you know who I'm not going to kill? All the amazing people that support us on Patreon. And a lot of those people are supporting us on the shout out tier, which means you get your own personalized shout out at the end of this episode of This Paranormal Life. And that's what we're going to do right now. So thank you to Josh Finlay.
Josh Finlay is looking spindly.
Whoop, whoop.
Kind of just slender man looking guy.
Not a good look.
Long limbs, long legs. That's
Isn't
why
it funny that everyone wants to look like a model, like thin and gaunt and have those like cheekbones, but no one wants to look spindly.
Right.
That's not never a
It's a
compliment.
thin line.
No one's like, hey, you look really spindly today.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's why you got to dress for your body shape, Josh. So we need to get you looking like Billie Eilish. All right.
Yeah, not spindly Eilish.
That's a very disturbing kind of alter ego. No, we're talking quintuple XL baseball jersey.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Stuff that really just, I mean, it could backfire and you end up looking even more spindly. But I think it'll make you end up looking more human and less alien.
I like it. And Finley, of course, is an alien, so that will help. Thank you, Josh. Thank you to Matthias or Matthias. I believe this individual is one of our younger listeners of the podcast. And I know what they're worried about. Am I old enough to join the paranormal commune? I'm very happy to say that as of this year, we are going to be beginning a long journey of railroad projects within the commune, of which there is really no limit. In fact, maybe we're going a little too young.
Yeah, the commune was cheap because it's nothing but mountain. We have, when we're done, there'll barely be room to stand. It'll be so many railroads.
It's nothing but mountain. When we talk about the districts, we're talking mostly about elevation. So people at the highest levels can barely breathe. They're so high in the sky.
Yeah.
So yes, we are working on a system to make traveling a little bit easier. And hopefully, Mateus, you can help us with that construction.
Yeah, absolutely. You are the worker of tomorrow. That will definitely still be here tomorrow to work on the railroads.
Thank you also to Caroline Diaz. Caroline is honestly just a pain in the ass.
Nice, dude.
You know, you give them a golden opportunity to build something great, a railroad system that connects the great mountains of the commune. And all of a sudden they're like, where's all the water? Where's all the food? Listen, Caroline, we can't get you the water without the railways.
Yeah,
all right?
So the sooner you finish it, the sooner you'll get a glass of water.
Yeah. So work a little
How
faster.
long is it going to take?
And you'll
9
get the train.
months. Yeah.
And 25 years, probably, at this rate.
9 months and 25 years.
25 years and 24 months. So 2 more years? Yeah. And thank you finally this week to Michael Belding.
Michael Building, cha-ching! Have we got a role for you in the commune?
Oh, we know Michael's Belding. We know for sure.
Now, Michael, you might be used to building things that are kind of, 1 story, 2 story, 3 stories tall. I got some great news for you. We don't even need 1 story. We just need one really long widthways kind of thing.
Michael, you are going to have your work cut out for you, buddy. But we're glad to have you here as a member of the Paranormal Commune, supporting us on Patreon. Thank you to everyone that supports us over there. As you know, the show simply wouldn't and couldn't exist without all of your amazing support. If you want to check out some of the cool rewards we have over there, head on over patreon.com/thisparanormallife, where you can sign up to the lowest tier for as little as $5 a month. It's nothing, but it helps the show grow and keeps the lights on and keeps us working towards creating the great railway system of the commune. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We'll be back on Friday with the after party over on Patreon. And of course, we will be back next week for another paranormal tale.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.